All right, this is Ron Climer again, and I told you that I would come back and talk to you about calling expired listings. And let me tell you a little bit about expired listings. And I am amazed how many sales managers and old-timer realtors say, oh, I would never call expired listings. Well, as I said, if your phone is ringing off the wall, you ain't got time to answer all the calls, then you don't need to be calling expired listings. This is for people that the phone is not ringing. This is for people, and by the way, you know, when I teach classes, I can't ever ask people some of the questions I would like to. But you know, if I was doing one-on-one tutoring for doing this, I would ask you, how many houses did you list last month? And if the answer is anything less than 4, I mean 4 listings a month, you need to be doing something. I mean, if you're listing a house or 2 a month, I'm sorry folks, that is nothing to brag about anywhere I've ever been. I mean, I don't want to be a downer, but because if you start calling expires, and by the way, I don't know where you are, but in Orlando, in the last 45-hour class I taught, I asked somebody to bring in the expireds, and somebody brought them in every day. There was probably an average of 15 a day. Now, are these guys prospects? Do y'all remember the definition of prospects from the previous tape? A prospect is someone that needs or wants your services, can afford it, and will most likely buy it from you or your competitor in a short period of time. Well, let me tell you about expired listings. If they don't list with you today, they will list with your competitor today. I would say at least half the expired list with somebody within 48 hours of their expiration. I mean, and I don't talk from ignorance, folks. I have called expireds every day for 15 years. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, let me tell you about expireds. Here's a guy that listed with maybe a good company, maybe a bad company. But 6 months have gone by, his house hasn't sold. He's 6 months more motivated than he was 6 months ago. He's not, you don't have to convince him to list with a realtor. You got to convince him to list with you instead of some other realtor. Now, here's what happened to him in 6 months. He has had a very definite opinion about what he needs or wants. You need a little bit of skill in figuring out what that is. Come to my 45-hour class and I'll teach you that. By the way, expired listings are overpriced. How do I know they're overpriced? They're expired. That's how I know they're overpriced. So that's a given. You can't be mad at people for overpricing their property. I mean, people do that all the time. However, what's happened in 6 months? Well, here's a lot of times. 6 months ago, he was going to be transferred 90 days from now. Today, he's already been transferred and he's made 2 empty payments on that house. So his motivation has gone from a 3-ish or 4-ish up to an 8-ish or a 9-ish. So that's just the way it happens. And as I said, they're going to list with somebody today or tomorrow or pretty soon. And that's all the good news. Now, we'll tell you the bad news about expired listings. You will have ferocious competition. You've got Mr. Superstar, Mrs. Superstar, because the best listers in town are always the ones that work expired listings. I don't make the rules, that's what they are. That's the bad news. However, I will give you a piece of good news. Sometimes they are so easy, it's not even fun. I've listed expireds in less than 12 minutes. I went to see an expired one time. I walked out of their house 12 minutes later with a signed listing and listed another house they owned and referred them to a broker in Nashville. And, you know, it's sometimes they're just so darn easy, it's no fun. Now, there's no magic to calling expireds. In fact, the magic today is probably getting a phone number for them. And y'all probably know more about that on the computer, anywho.com and all that sort of stuff. But I will tell you this. when I was out on the street selling real estate, I could find their phone numbers. Man, I used to spend an inordinate amount of time finding their phone numbers, and I always joked if I ever get out of real estate, I'm going in to be a private detective and finding people, because I could find them a dozen different ways. So finding their phone number sometimes can be the magic. But once you got their phone number, there's nothing to this. You just dial the phone. Now you've got their name, all right? So you call them up and you say, "Hi, Mr. Johnson. This is Ron Climer. I'm with XYZ Realty. I see your home expired in the MLS yesterday. Is it still for sale? Is it still for sale?" Be sure and ask that. And they say, "Well, yes, it's still for sale." Great. I'd like to come out and show you what XYZ Realty can do to get your home sold for you. Is this afternoon at 2 a good time, or would 6 o'clock be better? That's all there is to it, folks. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't make it seem hard. Just that's it. I mean, that's all there is to it. Now, I assume that you've got a dynamite listing presentation. If you don't, you better come to my 45-hour class and let me teach you one, because, like I said, you've got ferocious competition. You've got Susie Superstar out there calling those expireds, and you're going to have some competition. And by the way, the older expireds get, the worse prospects they are. The best expired is today's expireds. I used to keep these expireds just stacked up on my desk, and but I didn't put the new ones on the bottom. I put the new ones on the top, because the older they get, they probably already listed with somebody else. Maybe they weren't all that motivated. Who knows what? But now, I'm not going to put this on the video about finding people. I will tell you this: in today's world, there is a zillion ways to find people. And I found people that were in prison. I found people that were in witness protection. I found people that didn't want to be found. Now, expireds are not necessarily hiding from you. And with today, with Google and all that, I would think, unless they are hiding from you, it's just not that hard to find people. You find them, you get a phone number, you get a employer's phone number, and give them a call. But I'm not going to spend time on this video for that. But if you got some, what I used to do is just, I guess for lack of a better word, if I ever had some spare time, I would find somebody. And every once in a while, I would find a house that was extremely desirable, couldn't find the owner, and I would get that "I'm going to find this guy" attitude. And it was rare that I couldn't find them. And so if you'll spend some time finding people, now the harder they are to find, the less competition you're going to find when you do find them. So, but that's all there is to expireds. I'm going to close this up and leave this alone. If you don't, how can I tell you? Call expired listings. They're just absolute gold. They're just gold. They come out every day. By the way, I'm doing this tape on the 26th of the month. Let me tell you something. Today, if you run the expireds on the 26th, you'll get the 25th expireds. You won't have many. Tomorrow, there'll be even less. On the 28th, there'll be practically none. On the 30th and the 31st in Orlando, there'll be 100 of them. And that's because almost everybody, after they've been in the business a year or two, they go out on, say, the 20th of the month. They list a house for 6 months. Well, let's see, it's the 20th of December. Let's see, 6 months now, that'll be January, February, March, April, May, June. Let's just run this to the 30th of June. I've been doing that as long as I can remember, and so does every good realtor in town. And because that's true, you end up with, on the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, you have hardly any expires. But on the 30th, Because if it's a month like August, I can't remember how many days are in August, so I'll just put the 30th, and a lot of people do that. And if I'm sure, I'll put the 31st. But you make it to the end of that month, and so on the first of the month, woo! So you got plenty of prospects. Get on the phone and call. You don't want to run the whole town? Just run your neighborhood. Just run your neighborhood and call the ones in your neighborhood. And if you've got fear, forget that. Just leave it alone. The truth is, I can't even teach you how to do that. You got to figure out how to do that yourself. But that's all I'm going to talk about expired. So if I can help you, now by the way, if this has helped you, somebody wants to know where to go to real estate school, I'd appreciate it if you'd recommend Climer School of Real Estate. We do online courses. We got state exam reviews. You got somebody who wants to get into real estate but they can't pass the state exam for reasons that I won't discuss, tell them to call me. We got audio tapes, we got videotapes, we got books, we got live classes. We'll get you past the state exam. And if you know somebody who wants to get a license, we got classroom classes. So call some expireds. Worst thing that happened, they'll say no. Best thing that happened, they'll say yes.